Hi, it's Trina here. I'm a love coach, and you can find me online at www.lovetrina.com. And today's topic is about the real reasons why you're still single. And it's a bit of a dating and love state of the union for 2015, if you will. And so there's a lot that I want to talk about. Today's video is going to be longer than many of the videos that I've done in the past. And so I just want to lay that out. Before I get into the topics that I want to cover, I want to just lay a little bit of context in terms of how I do my work as a love coach and how I got here. And the reason why it's important, I think, for me to say this is because, there are a lot of people who are talking about dating and love and relationships. And I'm not just some random person, spouting my thoughts and ideas. That I have been a love coach a little over 6 years. But prior to that, I worked with survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. I did a lot of work around healthy relationships with families and couples. And so that eventually morphed into my work as a love coach. And so I've spent a lot of time talking about this and helping people and serving people. And so that really is the backdrop for me in terms of the work that I do with my clients. And so I just want to lay that out because everybody's got an opinion on love and relationships, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there are some of us who have done some work around this more professionally, and I am one of those people. And so that's kind of the context for me and me talking about this topic today. So the first thing that I want to discuss is what's happening for a lot of women is they're getting caught up in the crossfire of this paradigm shift that's happening in terms of love and relationships. And so there's a lot that's shifting, but we haven't quite got there yet. So what women are experiencing and thinking about love and relationships is shifting really fast, and what men are experiencing and thinking and feeling is moving not so fast. And so essentially what I mean is, a lot of men still have a very traditional way of thinking when it comes to love and relationships, and a lot of women are moving away from that. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't still plenty of women out there who want a more traditional, setup where, the man is, quote, the head of the house, he's the breadwinner, all of that. But there also are a lot of families who are doing things very differently. Now, the reason why this is important is because as we're making this shift, and by the shift, I mean women and men trying to get on the same page. It hasn't happened yet. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of loving relationships that aren't happening. And unfortunately, what I think is going on is a lot of people are ending up single. Specifically, a lot of women are ending up single as a result of getting caught up in this crossfire. Sometimes some people just get lost, some people get left. And in this, as we as a society and a world try to figure out how this is going to work. And it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of misconnections that are happening because of this paradigm shift. Now, I don't think it's I think it's a good thing for a lot of women, but I think men are kind of slowly coming up the rear, and it makes it really hard to create a healthy, loving relationship. So the other thing that is part of this backdrop is it's challenging for women to create loving, healthy relationships with the backdrop of everything that's going on for women worldwide in 2015. So when you think about, the girls that were kidnapped in Nigeria, when you think about, the astronomical rates of intimate partner violence, there's sex trafficking, there's revenge porn. I mean, there's a ton of things happening to women in the world. And so as a woman, when you're trying to create a healthy, loving relationship with a man, you've got all this stuff going on in the back of your head. Now, the guy that you're interested in, he probably has nothing to do with any of this, but that's not the point. The point is that all of this stuff is really in the collective unconscious of women in the world. And if you're a thinking, feeling woman that cares anything about these issues, you're trying to date and create healthy, loving relationships with all of this in mind, and it can be really tough to do that. And so you might be wondering why, you're tired of going out. You don't want to go out and meet another guy who's not going to work out or whatever it is. There's so much happening in the background that's adding to that stress and pressure. So aside from all the stresses and pressures that single women have to get married, to have babies, to do it all, to be it all, you've got this context of what's happening to women globally, and it makes it really tough to date. And so anyone who's not talking about that, it's like, listen, we've got to be more honest about the effects of all of this stuff on women in relationships and trying to love men and create loving relationships with men when we see all this negativity and we're a part of it. And it's really, really difficult to do. So it's not just you. If you're struggling, it's not just you. The other thing is if you yourself have been, violated, by a man or in a relationship. So whether that means whether you've been sexually assaulted at some point, whether you've been abused in any way, by a man or by a partner, it can make it really tough to move on and create healthy, loving relationships. So again, this is all the stuff that's going on in the background as you're trying to date and creating a loving relationship. So if you feel that trepidation, that anxiety, all that stuff, there's more to it than you just don't want to go out on a Friday night. The other thing is I think there are a lot of women who no longer want traditional relationships. And now there are, like I said, there are some couples who have worked this out, where maybe the woman is now the primary breadwinner, while the man stays home. There's a lot of that going on. And I think we have to allow people to choose and create the kind of relationships that they want. So if the more traditional way is not what you want, then that's great. But now it's the other side of the equation is, so who are the men who are going to want to support that? And what happens for a lot of women, this is what I see, is a lot of women want non-traditional relationships, but they still want to be with, the alpha male. And that's what doesn't work. So, a lot of people say, that the alpha male wants to be with a woman who maybe is not as ambitious as he is. Some people say, alpha males want to be with women who are just like them. I don't really know. I think it's probably a mixed bag. But I do know for a lot of women, especially a lot of women that I've worked with, they're really career-oriented women who are really ambitious, really going for it in so many areas of life. And it can be really tough to find love when you want to do things a little bit differently. And there's nothing wrong with that for those of you who really want to be more traditional. I think there's a place for that as well. It's not an either or. The great thing about, where we are in the world these days is that, at least in the United States, you get to choose. You get to choose what kind of loving relationship that you want to have. But the challenge is finding men who are on the same page as you. And that goes back to that paradigm shift. I just think a lot of it's getting lost because men and women just aren't on the same page the way that maybe we once were. I'm not so sure if how true that is, but things are still changing. So next, I want to talk about some of the biggest dating mistakes and challenges, and really the bad dating advice. And one of the biggest, to me, worst pieces of dating advice is telling women, encouraging women to get inside the male mind. I just think it's a waste of time. And here's why I say that. Now, I don't know about you, but I know I have enough trouble keeping up and worrying about and concentrating on what I'm thinking, let alone worrying about what somebody else is thinking. And so here's the thing is when you spend so much time worried about what the other person is thinking, you're not being present. So here's what I truly fundamentally believe about relationships is that you show up, you be as genuine and authentic as possible in that communication with somebody, whether it's a first date, whatever it is, and you expect that in return. Now, I'm not saying that the man has to, throw all his feelings out there on the table. It's not about that. It's just about being a grown-up and communicating with somebody. And if you're not capable of doing that, then you're probably not capable of having the kind of relationship that a woman today would want. And so that's the trouble. So you might get the guy, fine, you might be in this relationship, but think about where you're going to be 5-10 years. Is that behavior sustainable? Is constantly thinking and wondering and worrying about what this man is thinking and feeling, if he doesn't communicate it, is that something that you can sustain? And I don't think it's sustainable at all. And so while there's some women who are maybe more apt or more prone to that behavior. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some people are better at dating than others. It is what it is. But it's not impossible. It doesn't mean that everybody has to be doing things a certain way to find love. I just don't believe that. But again, this idea that you've got to dig inside the male mind and what are they thinking and how are they doing this? And it's not worth it. And here's the truth. The reason why so many women obsess about the male mind and what the man is thinking is because he hasn't completely chosen you. When a man hasn't completely chosen you or completely shown up, it leaves all of these things up for questioning. And so when you feel like he hasn't shown up, he hasn't done those things, he hasn't closed the deal with you, you've got all these questions and thoughts and feelings, and you want answers to them. And when men do things like they ghost on you, they disappear, you start pointing the finger at yourself, feeling like there's something that you could have done differently. Now, the truth is this: if you're doing anything other than being who you are, sure, you can tweak some things. And, we can always enhance ourselves, but the core of who you are is going to be the same. Now, the transformation that needs to happen in a lot of people's lives, that takes a long time to do. And so if you're in a situation where, you're trying to be this other kind of person, you're not going to get a lobotomy anytime soon, I don't think. So you've got to date in the context and the realm of your own personality. Trying to do something different, like somebody else, and trying to worry about what this man is thinking all the time, it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. Okay. So next, there's no perfect place for you to be in your life to meet the right person. And this is something that I've struggled a lot with as a love coach. I teach a lot about, doing your own personal work, working on yourself, all this kind of work. But what I've discovered over the years is that, people make relationships happen all the time in all kinds of states of being. So just when you think, somebody who, just got divorced and maybe it was a messy situation, shouldn't be dating, and most of them probably shouldn't be dating, there's somebody who makes it happen. They create a wonderful relationship. But there's just no perfect place to be in. And even, I think loving yourself and the work that you do on yourself is really a lifelong journey. There's no end point. And so once you can just accept that about yourself, that, hey, this is where I am, and I want to meet somebody as I am right now. Now, of course, you're going to improve. You're going to get better with life, in life. And, as the years go by, you're getting older. Hopefully you're getting better. But to wait to get to this perfect state of mind or being, or to wait till all your issues with your parents are worked out or whatever it is. It's like if you look at all the married people that even let's just concentrate on the happily married people that how many of them did all of this, quote, work on themselves before they met the one? My guess is not that many. And so this is something that I just want more women to accept and wake up to and understand. Listen, you're ready right now. Now, the truth is, if you are the kind of woman who gets really insecure when your man talks to other women or whatever it is it going to make it harder to date? Absolutely. But not impossible. There are a lot of, insecure men and women who are married. Now, like I said, now, does it mean it's perfect? No, but it's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to work through that and having someone who's willing to be there with you as you go through that. So that's really the important state to be in, and just saying, hey, listen, I'm ready and I want to meet somebody who's willing to meet me where I am right now. Okay. So I mentioned being authentic. I think that is the most important thing that you can do, is be genuine and pay attention to the person who's sitting across the table from you. That's about all you can really do. And go with the assumption that this person is showing up honestly and genuinely. And if you feel like the person is not being honest with you or as forthcoming as they should be, then leave. That's really all there is to it. When you go out with somebody in earnest that you really want to get to know, expect them to do the same thing for you. So all the game playing, all the stuff that I think goes on that a lot of women are afraid of, that's why there's so much analysis about dating and love and relationships. Because it's like you feel like, he's going to hurt me. Because you've been hurt in the past, and you feel like, how can I prevent that from happening again? And the truth is, you've got to listen to your gut. You've got to be attentive. You've got to be paying attention. But even with all of that, there's no guarantee that this person won't do what, the last guy did. Now what you can do is nip it in the bud and not, languish in that situation for 5 years. That's what you can do. If you see that somebody's not being forthcoming or honest with you, you get out. That's it. But the more that you can date authentically and just show up on a date and expect that person to show up in earnest and genuinely want to get to know you and spend time with you, that's really it. And then that's how it starts. And lastly, I want to just touch on the importance of speaking up for yourself and having boundaries in relationships. So one of the biggest challenges I've seen for my clients over the years is not being willing to speak up for themselves for fear that the man will leave, or not having any boundaries. So if you say to yourself, if a boundary for you is, listen, I need at least a couple of days notice before, you're going to say yes to a date. That means if he calls you at, 4 o'clock on a Friday night for a date, then you say no. That's a boundary. Now, I'm not saying that has to be the boundary, but if you're telling yourself that's the boundary, then that's your boundary. What gets sticky is you have a boundary and every time someone comes into your life, you keep changing it. So if you say, I need 2 days notice before a date, but every time someone calls you day of, you always say yes, you're not sticking to your boundaries. And even though that's a small example, but think about what that looks like when you're in a relationship with somebody. That means they're going to be constantly pushing your boundaries. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to resent it. That's why having boundaries is so important. The other thing that so many women don't do is speak up for yourself. If you are in a relationship with someone, if you're dating them, tell them what you think and what you need and want. Now, you don't need to be crass about it. You don't need to be rude about it, but you do need to state the truth of what it is. So if you know that, listen, you're a vegan and he's trying to take you to some, the local burger joint, you know what I mean? You tell him that, listen, hey, I'm a vegan. You know what I mean? Like, that's not where you want to go. If someone asks you where you want to go on a date, you tell them. It's just that simple. Just speaking up for yourself. If you're in a relationship and they hurt your feelings, tell them that they've hurt your feelings. Because this is what happens and why so many women are frustrated when it comes to love and dating. They've been hurt and haven't articulated that to the men in their lives. And so when the next person comes along, he gets punished because she couldn't tell the previous guy how she was really feeling. And again, there's that fear that so many women have of this man leaving and not coming back. But it's like, is he really worth holding on to if he can't listen to you and stick around when you share how he's hurt you? And again, I want you to think all of this in the context of a much longer relationship. You're not going to be happy if you have to be jumping through hoops and doing all these tricks. It just doesn't work. You're not going to be happy. So I hope you found this to be useful. I hope there was some nuggets in here, some food for thought. If you are in a situation where you're struggling with love and dating and relationships, you want a relationship, but you're really having a hard time getting through some of the issues that we've talked about today, I want you to reach out to me. I'm offering complimentary 30-minute sessions with me, and I can tell you a little bit more about how I work with my clients and also get to know you a little bit and see how I can help you. You can email me at trina@lovetrina.com to set that up with me. And that's TRENIA@lovetrina.com. Thanks for watching.